So our challengers have argued that the 3 strikes violates the proportionality rule or proportionality rule, which states that the idea that time should fit the crime. Because a relatively minor crime committed by a repeat offender could result in a much harsher punishment than a violent crime committed by a first-time offender. Now, in People v. Superior Court, with Romero, the state Supreme Court ruled that 3 strikes did not eliminate the judicial discretion to dismiss prior serious or violent felony convictions. And as I was talking about earlier, where even if it was 4 or 5 years ago, the strike would still be there. Well, and again, it depends on whether, let's say, if you have 2 strikes or not, you'll be able to take away infractions, misdemeanors, little by little. So, numerous other important issues relating to the implementation of the law have been resolved through the courts. For example, the courts have been determined the wobblers. Those are basically crimes that can be considered either a misdemeanor or a felony. Can trigger a 2nd and 3rd strike enhancement. Juvenile convictions can count as strike offenses, and multiple strikes can be charged from a single crime or incident. Now, California is known for giving some of the strikers their last strike even if they committed a small felony. However, if you were convicted and had 2 strikes, wouldn't it frighten you enough to know that if you commit any other kind of crime, whether it's something as small, taking a candy bar, or stealing glass from some store from IKEA, or you should have the common sense to know not to, you don't want to get anything else on your record. This 3 strikes law significantly increases the prison sentences of persons convicted of felonies who have been previously convicted of a violent or serious felony, and it limits the ability of the offenders to receive a punishment other than a prison sentence. Now, thousands of offenders have been charged under the provisions of 3 strikes. Well, more than that now, but since 1994. Now, historically, more than 90% of all felony cases statewide are disposed through plea bargaining. This seems to be, plea bargaining is where, let's say if you have a couple, that's what he was talking about earlier actually, is where you can bargain or basically plead guilty and you'll have a lesser term. Now, as I was saying, this seems to be changing as dependents or defendants are refusing to plea bargain and are taking their cases to jury trial. Given that much larger prison sentences face if convicted of a trial strike offense, basically they're really not holding back anymore. 3 strikes, I mean, if they figure if you're already going for your 3rd strike, they're going to be pretty harsh. Now, data has indicated that only about 14% of all 2nd strike cases and only about 6% of all 3rd strike cases have been disposed through plea bargaining. And again, I'll give a better definition of plea bargaining. Basically, it's the opportunity to plead guilty, usually to a lesser charge or the original criminal charge with a recommendation of a lighter than maximum sentence. So, for 3rd strikers, for bail, I mean, obviously for 3rd strikers, you can't get bail. It's obvious. But since 3rd strike offenders face possible life in prison if convicted, they are considered high security inmates requiring closer supervision and restricted housing arrangements. It's a greater cost than general population, but you figure if you're on 3 strikes, you're pretty hot and heavy within the cell. The number of inmates sent to prison under 3 strikes law will be less than originally projected for 3 reasons. 1, the large backlog of cases awaiting education at the local level has resulted in a slower than anticipated increase in the prison can load. 2, the department has lowered slightly the projections of felonies that because of 3 strikes will be sent to state prison instead of being sentenced to probation or country jail. And the 3rd reason is the CDC is using more than sophisticated techniques to estimate the impact of the 3 strikes law when it's assessed to the impact of the purpose of the legislation. So as of right now, I mean, all we're really fighting for is if you get up to 2 terms, you're basically gone. I've heard of a term where a person, this was about 7 years ago in the article, that he had a sentence from 35 years to like 107 years in prison. I mean, obviously you're not going to live that long, but they're just showing you that you're never going to get out. And I don't find the problem behind that of giving those type of terms, because everyone should be learning about the idea that if you're already on 2 strikes, you don't want to be in there in life. And if you continue to make even small, minor infraction misdemeanors, that's just going to lead to, I mean, it's still going to be cost effective, but everyone should just stick to the idea of not trying to go back to jail.